This is Harjot Ghai from Obero Solutions. Thank you for joining our webinar today on Need Clarity on Clarity 7. In today's webinar, we are going to be demonstrating Clarity 7, and hopefully for the folks on the line who are using Clarity 7, you get to see some opportunities within the application that you can leverage within your existing organization. The goal of today's webinar is really for us to walk you through a high level of all the different modules that exist in Clarity 7, from budgeting, forecasting, HR planning, capital planning, and some features that exist in the application, such as versioning and what-if modeling. My contact information, my email address is on the screen. If you do have any questions during the webinar, or if you have any questions after today's webinar, please feel free to email me, and I'll try to get back to you as soon as I can. So in terms of agenda, I'm just going to share a couple of quick slides on who Obero Solutions is. I know a lot of the folks on the line today are aware with our services that we offer. And in the demo itself, I'm going to be focusing on budgeting and forecasting, HR planning at an employee level, what-if modeling and analysis, where you can do any sort of scenario analysis and sensitivity analysis. Obero Solutions is an organization that our focus is really on what we call corporate performance management. So this includes budgeting, planning, and forecasting, and financial reporting. We also have a lot of expertise in-house for business intelligence applications. We have implemented a lot of BI solutions in the industry as well. And with regards to our organization, we also specialize in financial consolidations and close management. So if you need to do any sort of journal entries, currency conversions, or any sort of intercompany eliminations using our application, so we do have a lot of expertise in that area. And lastly, we also have our own application called Obero SPM for incentive compensation management, which is a growing space within the Office of Finance and HR and Sales Ops organizations. Our company was founded by former IBM services executives. For the folks who don't know me on the line, I used to work at Clarity Systems, then was acquired by IBM, and I used to manage professional services for Northeast at IBM, and was a client director there in my last role. So I had a lot of expertise with Clarity, the application itself, but also have a lot of experience with Cognos TM1, Cognos Disclosure Manager from IBM as well. Our company itself, we like to define ourselves as a platform-agnostic business advisory consulting provider. What that means is that we do have partnerships with multiple vendors. We do have partnerships with IBM, Cognos, and some of the other mid-sized vendors in the marketplace as well for budgeting, forecasting, and reporting solutions. So what we work with our clients is we understand their business requirements, identify any issues that they have from both functional as well as technical, and then based on the requirements that our clients have, we recommend the solution based on the solutions that we work with. So we don't necessarily think that there is one best fit for a solution in the market. Everybody's requirements are different. So based on your unique requirements, we'll identify a solution which we think would be the best fit for you. We also have about 60 consultants now within our organization. These are full-time Obero employees. We don't hire any contractors. So we do like to put our own skin in the game when we do our implementations. And our consultants range from architects, project managers, and account managers within our organization. And we are a global company. We do have an office we're headquartered near the Toronto area. We do have an office in the United States, an office in Bucharest, Romania, that a lot of our consultants have worked from our Bucharest office to help their North American and European client base as well. And at the bottom here is just some awards and accolades that we've received in the last couple of years. We've been ranked as one of the top 10 fastest growing companies in Canada in the IT sector. This year we also won the Tech Connect's Momentum Company of the Year. And in the CIO Review magazine, we were also listed as one of the top 20 promising corporate finance tech solution providers in the market as well. So vendors we support, we do work a lot with IBM, a lot of expertise in Cognos applications, obviously in Clarity, but we do also have a lot of expertise implementing budgeting, forecasting, and reporting solutions using service software vendors such as Longview, Thomson Reuters Elite, Profix, SAP BPC, Tagetik, Vena, and Oracle Hyperion Planning as well in HFM. So, as mentioned earlier, because we do work with a lot of different products in the market, we know the strengths and shortcomings of each product. So we're able to work with our clients to identify their unique requirements and then recommend a solution which we feel would be the best fit for them due to our experience. Some of our clients are listed. We've got our 200 plus clients now at Obero. These are just what we call a NASCAR slide. The reason we have the slide up is really just to show the breadth and we have in terms of our clients. We've got clients all the way from enterprise to mid-size across multiple verticals, from financial services to retail to healthcare, higher ed, government as well. So, wanted just to highlight the skill set that we have within our organization. Depending on the industry you're in, we would assign consultants who have expertise within that space as well. So without further ado, I'm going to move into the demo itself. So a lot of you folks on the line are probably aware with the screen that we're looking at right now. This is obviously the Clarity homepage, and the Clarity homepage is really, for us to be able to navigate through the application using the different templates and reports that have been assigned to the end users themselves. We do also have the ability to, put any sort of notes within the homepage as well if we want to put in a comment for communication purposes. We can also put in a comment and make that a global comment. By putting a comment on the home page, it's a great way for us to collaborate, for us to be able to share with other end users who are going to be using the Clarity application, if there's any important communication that needs to take place within the organization itself. I'm going to start off by showing some budgeting capabilities. Obviously, if you go to my templates, you can look at the folders and templates that you have access within the folder structure. The templates themselves can be controlled through security. So if you only have access to the HR templates, then you may only have access to this particular folder. I am logged in as an administrator, as you can see on the top right-hand side here. So because I'm logged in as an administrator, I do have access to see every single template and report that we have within our Clarity implementation here. So I'm just going to focus here now on some budgeting capabilities that we have within the application. So I'm going to go into my templates. We've got a budgeting template here called Expense Template Budget. And, we're presented with page options. Page options obviously can be controlled through security. So if I only have responsibility, let's say for the South Bay Supply Company, then an administrative application can only grant me access to that particular node. In my example here, I'm an administrator, so I have access to all of the different bottom level entities within my organization. I'm just going to choose Office Products for us in terms of the demo. And I'm just going to select OK here. And I'm presented with my budget template, right? In my budget template here, you can see that obviously the way we've color-coded this template is that we've got yellow cells that are our input cells, but then we have white cells that are coming from, or data that's coming from different templates within my application. If I try to type over any of the white cells, I get a message to tell me that it's read-only. So this is a great way for you to control numbers that are being fed from other templates or other modules cannot be changed. So within the input template that I have for budget, you can also see on the left-hand side, we've got some X's and check marks on the left-hand side. And this is really for Clarity to put any sort of validations that we need within the application. So as an example, I'm putting in my data here for base plan for 2015, but I also am bringing in my 2014 actuals and forecast data on the left-hand column. If I try to input any data that is going to significantly increase my data that I have within my budget, and I've set up a threshold that if my data is going to be a lot higher than, I'm just going to put 250K here, but if my data is a lot higher than my actuals, that I get an X over here on the left-hand side, as you can see. If I try to save the data, I get an error message or a warning that tells me that any time I have any expense items that exceeds 20% variance from my actuals, I have to put some sort of commentary to justify why that expense is so high. So in my example here, you can notice here on the right-hand side for this row, because I can't change, I can't save because I've got an X here for validation. I have to put in some commentary on the left-hand side, sorry, on the right-hand side, and here I can put so I can put any sort of explanation here. I'm putting here that expenses are higher because we've got some new hires that we're bringing in. And now if I try to save the template, Clarity lets me save the template because I put in some commentary to give some details and justification of why my variance is high for this particular account. Right, so that's the concept of validations. Some of our clients, are using Clarity and not aware that this functionality exists. So I wanted to make sure this is highlighted in the application. Some other cool features that we have within Clarity that will help you, maximize the features, built-in features that exist in the application itself. We do have the capabilities to do any sort of spreading. So you can see here my advertising line for my total amount for the year that I've inputted monthly from January to December equals 18,000. But if I want to spread a different value than an annual amount, I can hit the spread. I can select the annual amount itself, and I can select the spreading button. And now I can say here that, you know what, I'm going to spread data, but I want to spread $24,000 on an annual amount, but I also want to spread it based on, I can spread it evenly. I can spread it on a 4-4-5 based on headcount, working days last year. So there are some built-in spreading functionality tools that exist within Clarity where you can specify different spreading patterns that you may want to have in the application. In my case here, I'm just going to spread the data evenly and hit OK. And you'll notice here that 24,000 got spread evenly into the months, and this is a great way for you to be able to give templates to your end users where they can input amounts at an annual level and then spread the data to the individual months based on some spreading patterns, so they don't actually physically have to go in and manually type in numbers for each individual month itself. Right? So that's the concept of spreading. One other real important feature that exists within the application is the concept of what we call line item details. So line item details is a great way for you to put any sort of more granular information. That in our case here, this template is really defined to input data at a GL level. So my accounts that I have in the operating expense on the left-hand side, these are accounts that are at natural accounts that I have within my GL, within my ERP system. So I do not have any more detail coming from ERP that is below this particular natural GL account that I have. However, if I want to put, for budgeting purposes, if I want to put any more granular information in any of the accounts that I have, it's easy for me to do that through the concept of what we call line item detail. So as an example here, it's going to, let's say there's a value in January that I want to input, but I want to put a value that's going to be a bit more detailed for advertising my account. So I can do add line item detail. And within advertising, I can easily just come over here and put TV. And I can also come add more line item details. There is no limitation. And here you can see I put 2 line item details for that particular account, and I can type in some values here. I'll put 4,000 here. You'll notice what happens right away in Clarity. It's telling us in the left-hand side that these 2 line items that I put in are not real GL accounts that I have. They actually roll up to advertising within Clarity itself. And now I could put in some details here for each individual line item details. I put TV for 2,000, internet for 4,000, and you'll notice right away my total is going to be stored at $6,000 for the advertising GL account that I have for January. Right? The reason why Clarity highlights the value in gray is because it's a visual indicator for an end user to know that there's line item details that make up that number. Right? If I try to type in a number over the 6,000, it's going to give me an error message, and this is because this is how Clarity actually validates and makes sure that the sum of the parts equals the whole. So if you have any line item details, you can not input at a parent level until you either delete those line item details or add to the existing line item details for any adjustments. Right? I can come over here and I can save the data. I've got some notes here. I can save the data and send that back to my database. And now I've put line item details within my advertising GL account as well. Some other real important features that exist in the application for budgeting that makes it more efficient for your end users to use the application is the concept of what we call cell notes. And cell notes really allows you to put any sort of commentary to a particular number. Right? In my example before, I had put what we call a row note, and the row note was for this particular account called subscription and books. And I also put in a row note for consulting. But a row note really applies to the actual row itself. Right? That comment I put applies to the whole consulting line in my example right now. But if I want to put in a value here for, say, 250, I actually want to put a note for the $250,000. I can click on cell notes. I can add a cell note. And now easily within the application, I can say here, I can put in a cell note here and hit save. And once I hit save, you'll notice right away my $250,000 actually gets highlighted in blue. And the reason why Clarity highlights it in blue is to let the end users know that, when they open up this template, that there's a cell note attached to this $250,000. So if an end user actually wants to see the note, they can easily just come over to here on the left-hand side, hit cell notes, and they'll see the note that I put, who put the note, and the timestamp of the note itself. Furthermore, an end user, when they're putting a sell note, can also put any sort of attachments, right? So here I just put in some commentary, but if I want to add a new sell note, you do have the ability to put multiple sell notes to a particular number. It's not just limited one-to-one. I can put in a new comment here, and I can also attach existing documents. So if I have an invoice, or if I've got a contract that I want to attach to this number, I can easily go into add sell notes and attach an existing file or new document to support my numbers as well. Right. So that's the concept of sell notes. It's used a lot by our clients. The last functionality that I wanted to show on this particular template is the concept of what we call open in Excel and import from Excel. Right. Many clients don't know that you have the ability to import Excel files that your end users fill out, and then you can actually store those numbers back into Clarity. The reason why this functionality exists is because you may have some offline users who have to input numbers for your budget process, but they may not have direct access to Clarity. So what you can do is you can create a template for them. You can export the template into Excel and then pass the Excel file to your end users where they can actually go in and input their numbers. And then you can import their Excel data back into Clarity and hit save and store it back into the centralized Clarity database. So this is a great way for your offline users to be able to input data into Clarity. And it's also a great way for you to be able to control what data is getting back into the Clarity application. So as an example here, I can open this document in Excel by hitting open in Excel. And when I hit open in Excel, it's going to open this document within Excel, and it's got it here at the bottom. Now I have the ability, I'm offline, so if I'm on the train ride home, as an example, I can still input my budget. Obviously, I'm offline at this moment. I'm in Excel. I'm not in Clarity anymore. But I can easily come in here and put in some data. So let's say I want to change the value from 1,000 here, change it to 2,000, change this to 3,000, change this to 5,000. I can save this data. And I'm going to store this as an Excel file. So I've stored this as an Excel file within Excel itself. But let's say I'm back home and I want to import the numbers. I don't want to retype all those numbers back in Clarity. I've got them in the Excel file that I've inputted in. I can easily come over here to import from Excel. And coming back to import from Excel, I can actually choose the document that I want to input right here. Hit OK. And you'll see now that what Clarity is going to do at the bottom is actually importing the data from Excel into the Clarity application. So now the numbers that I had in my Excel file, which were over here, are going to be loaded back into my Clarity application. So those are the numbers I updated. And now if I just hit save, I've updated my data in the database as well. So it's a great way for you to have offline users who you want to be able to give access to in terms of an Excel file. As long as you structure the template or an Excel file which can't be changed, you password protected, then users can input any data that they want in the yellow cells that you have and then import that information back into Clarity. So that's the concept of open in Excel and import in Excel as well. So those are some key features that exist in the application. There are obviously a lot more that you see on the left-hand side, but I want to focus really on the key features that really a lot of our clients enjoy within Clarity and are very useful features in the application. I am going to switch my focus a little bit just on forecasting. Now, forecasting within Clarity is very similar to budget. The only difference really is that we would typically create a new scenario within our application. So this way you can have your scenario for forecasting, you can have your scenario for budget, and the data can be different between the two versions or scenarios as well, right? In my example here, I'm just going to open up my forecast template. You'll notice here I'm going to choose the same division, but the difference here is I have a different scenario for each of the months that I'm doing forecasting for. My demo purpose here, I'm actually demoing a model that I have where I have the ability to forecast on a monthly basis. So if I'm doing my July forecast as an example, and I hit OK, you'll notice here that I've got my January to June data for actuals. You'll notice that this data here is now locked. I can't change that data. But because I'm in my July forecast on the top here, as you can see, I'm able to only input data from July to December onwards. Anything before January to June for this template is actuals for that particular year, right? Next month, when I'm going to be in August, so I'm just going to change this to August, hit OK here. You'll notice now my July is locked and my August data is open. So this is a great way for you to have different forecast scenarios and then be able to have a template that's very dynamic. So depending on what forecast scenario you're in, you're getting actuals and columns are locked for prior periods. I will show now a little bit of functionality that we also have within Clarity for what we call rolling forecast. Rolling forecast, and I've been working on implementation for the last 10 years in the budgeting space, but rolling forecast is very popular right now. A lot of our new implementations, clients are leaning and changing their business process to incorporate rolling forecast, and Clarity can do this very easily. So I have an example of an expense template, as you can see here, called expense template rolling forecast. And when I hit OK here, I'm going to choose my Office Products or Us, and you'll notice here this template is for forecasting, but it's really for a rolling 12-month forecast. Now, if let's say I'm in my August forecast and I hit OK, this template is going to open, and you'll notice that since it's a rolling 12-month forecast, I can input data starting from August of 2014, but I don't have, like the previous template, I only went up to December. This template actually goes between years. So after December, it actually switches to January and starts inputting data within 2016, right? And because it's rolling 12 months, I actually see out 12 months from August of 2015, right? Next month, if I go into, let's say, I'm going to be in September, and I'm going to change this to September, hit OK. So now you'll see I can start inputting data starting from September, but I also have one extra month on the right-hand side for August, right? So this is a great way for you to have dynamic templates that are rolling forecasting based, where as the months changes, as you go from one month to another, an additional month gets added to the end of the template. And you'll notice on the left-hand side, I'm also showing my previous 12 months of actuals, right? So it's very easy to build this in Clarity. If you're using forecasting in Clarity that's only doing 1 year at a time, or you're stopping in December, it's very easy for us to modify your forecasting process so that we incorporate rolling forecast, where we can actually add functionality where the months are getting added as you go from one month to another. Okay. I'm going to switch a little bit of focus now on HR planning, total salaries for your department or office. But in our case here in the demo, we actually have implemented HR planning module, which I'm going to show today, which is very powerful. It allows you to actually input expenses for salaries by employee for budgeting purposes. But then Clarity has business rules that you can set up that automatically take the salary information and then calculate the bonuses, benefits, taxes, and any other compensation-related expense you set up for each employee. The total of all the salaries, benefits, bonuses, and taxes for all the employees that belong, let's say, to a particular entity would then show up in these compensation-related expenses that we have at the top. Right? So you'll notice here under my templates, I've got a folder here called HR Planning. Now these templates that I'm going to show next in the HR Planning module are built-in templates within the application. These are not something that I've built for the demo. These actually exist. Obviously, it requires configuration based on your requirements, but I would say 70% of the work on most implementations for HR is already done because the templates already exist, as long as you can fit your most of your requirements within the existing templates and reports. So I'm actually going to go up here and click on the employees template. And I get a page option here. I'm going to choose Office Products or Us, hit OK. And you'll notice on this template, I've got a set of fields for each employee. So, for example, for Adrian McCroin at the top, Adrian has a employee ID, he's got a currency, he's got an employee status, he has a salary grade, a salary type, an employee type, and so on, and his annual salary as well, right? So typically in an implementation, when you start your budgeting process and you want to use the HR module within Clarity, we would load your existing HR data from your payroll or payroll system like ADP or Ceridian or Workday, whatever you're using. We would actually load your existing employees into Clarity. So when you open up this type of template for budgeting purposes, all your employees that belong to a particular department or office, how we set it up, will show up on this template, your existing employees. Now that the existing employees are within the application, you have the ability to change somebody's salary for budgeting purposes. You have the ability to transfer employees between different departments or offices or entities. You also have the ability to terminate employees for budgeting purposes and so on, and split employees within departments as an example. And I'm going to highlight some of these functionalities right now. So as an example here, you can see that I have an existing employee called Steve Nash. I've got an existing employee called Joe Smith. If I just come over here to Joe Smith, I can easily edit any information I have. There's a button here called Edit Employee. And now when I select it, The edit employee opens up a new window where I have the ability to change any sort of information I've loaded in for Joe Smith from my source system, and I can update it for budgeting purposes. So as an example, maybe his salary right now that I've loaded in is $60,000, but for budgeting purposes, maybe I know that he's going to be getting a new salary. So maybe instead of $60,000, Joe Smith is really going to be $80,000, right? You can also see on the some drop downs that we have. These are really drop downs that we can configure. For each employee, we can have different salary types. In my example here, salary 1 is full time, salary 2 is really part time, where they're paid hourly. So I want to make them a salaried employee, and then a salary grade. Salary grades are really important because they allow us to help end users or administrators application see what the recommended minimum and maximum salary should be, right, for a particular pay grade. So for pay grade 2, you can see that I've set up that the low salary is $25,000, the high salary is about $65,000. And if I change the pay grade to, he's going to be in pay grade 3, you can see right away that it's telling me that the low range is really $50,000 and high range is $90,000. We can show these fields for each pay grade as in informational purposes. Maybe you just want to give this to your end users, they can actually get some guidelines. We can also use these pay grades to actually put in some controls where, for example, if I was to, let's say, increase the salary to $100,000, but I'm specifying that he really belongs to the pay grade 3, it actually won't let me make that change because we've set an upper limit of $90,000 for this pay range. Right? So Clarity is flexible if you want to put any sort of hard stops versus just giving this type of information for guideline only. I'm going to go ahead and actually just make it 80,000, and I'm going to hit OK here. And you'll notice here, if I scroll to the right now, I also have other information for Steve Nash. I can see, if they're eligible for any sort of employee flags. I can see their merit month, their effective month, any end date that they have as well. He's not going to be leaving departments or offices, so we're just going to have him blank. And you can also see on the right-hand side, audit details for each employee. So if we want to see, for example, how this employee made it into the Clarity application, we can see, where they're new hire, where they loaded in from the source system, and so on, right? So within the application itself, it's very powerful for you to be able to see, any sort of information that you need for each employee. So you'll notice here that for Joe Smith, their prior salary was about $50,000. I just upped it to $80,000. Now, when I hit save here, what Clarity does behind the scenes, it saves the data to the database, so it's going to know that I've updated this employee's salary to $80,000. But now, behind the scenes, it's also recalculating Joe Smith's benefits. It's also recalculating Joe Smith's bonuses, any sort of taxes that he has to pay as well, based on salary, right? So all this information is being recalculated when I've made change to salary, because salary is really my source number to actually drive what bonuses and benefits should be, right? So now that I've saved the data, now if I go back into another report, I have a report under my reports, and it's called the cost report by employee. If I click on this and just hit OK, this report actually tells me for each employee that I have within the application what salaries on the compensation related expenses Clarity actually calculated behind the scenes. So I can actually expand this, and I can see monthly all of the different expense amounts that Clarity has calculated. I think originally we were looking at Joe Smith in our example. If I just scroll down to the bottom, I think that's where he is. So you'll see Joe Smith here, and you can see all the different salary information. You can see Joe Smith's taxes that he's been calculated, any bonuses that he's got, any sort of benefits that he's got as well, right? So I'm going to show next within the HR planning module how this information is actually set up, right? Because salary is really driving, what type of information we're calculating within Clarity. So right before I get to that, just want to show a few more things about the employee template, because this is actually one of the standard templates that exists within the application, right? I also have the ability to move, let's say, an employee. I could transfer an employee. I can edit an employee, which I just showed. Transfer employee, if I transfer an existing employee that hasn't been transferred in the past, let's say I take Mike here and I transfer this employee. Let me see if I can find somebody who hasn't been transferred. Let's look at Joe Collins. So Joe Collins, I can transfer this employee by just hitting the button called Transfer Employee. And right now he obviously belongs into Office Products or Us. But let's say I want to move him actually to a different office or different entity that I have. Maybe he's going to be going to the Golden office. I could select Golden office, and I could specify the effective month. So for Joe Collins, I'm going to say, you know what, after July, he's not going to be part of my department or office, right? So I've specified here that he's going to be moving to the Golden office, and he's going to actually get that started. That move's actually going to take effect in July. If I hit OK here, and just do a save, now behind the scenes, Clarity is recalculating all the compensation related expenses for Joe Collins. The difference really now is that Joe Collins is his compensation related expenses after his transfer date is going to hit a different entity that I have. It's not going to be hitting the office products or us, which I'm looking at right now. If I go back into cost report by employee and just do a refresh, and if I look at Joe Collins, then I can see all the information that it's been calculated for Joe Collins. And if I come back into my employees template, I can see also any information that I have. If I hit the plus button here, I can see here that Joe Collins is going to get transferred out, and he's going to get transferred into a different office that I have, and that's going to start actually happening in July itself. Okay. So, Clarity lets you do all these calculations behind the scenes as long as we've configured some business rules. So I'm going to show you actually how that happens. If I go to my templates under HR planning, I've got a template for bonuses, benefits, salary grades, and taxes. These are all standard templates that exist within the application. If I go to the bonus one, for example, you'll notice on this template, I have the ability to create bonuses. And by creating a new bonus, I can also specify which end user or employee is actually going to get that bonus. And you can see here in this example in the demo, I've got really 4 different drivers to determine what combination of employees gets that bonus. So the holiday bonus, you'll notice that every person that belongs to any department, belongs to any salary grade, any job title, and paid in USD dollars is going to get a value of 500. So if we go back to my cost report by employee, you can see here that there's a holiday bonus of 500. Right? So anybody who meets that criteria got that $500. And you'll notice it's in period 12 because I've specified itself in the holiday bonus that this amount, if I just edit it, that we're paying in a single month, and it's going to get applied in period 12. Right? Now, if I want to add a new bonus, so I'm just going to show as an example here. I can do an add row, and I'm going to say, you know what, we're also, company's doing well, we're also going to give a summer bonus, and we're going to give it to, maybe it's only people that belong to the office products or us. I can specify that here. Or I can also say that, give it to everybody in my organization. So I'm just going to give it to everybody because the whole company is doing well. And I'm going to give it to all salary grades, any job title, it's really company-wide. And I'm going to say, in the summer we're going to give a value of $1,000 as a one-time bonus. And let's give that in period 6, which is going to be June. And, I could also give it as a percentage. Here in this example, I'm giving it as a full amount. But if I want to give a bonus that's going to be based on a percentage of, let's say, salary, I can also give a percentage as opposed to typing in a value itself. So I'm going to give a new summer bonus pretty much to every employee in my organization, a value of 1,000, hit OK. You'll notice right away it added a new line. I'm just going to save this information. Now behind the scenes, Clarity is recalculating all of the bonuses, benefits, taxes for the employees based on any changes that I've been making. So as you can see, if I go back into my cost report by employee, and now if I just refresh the data, you'll see now there's a summer bonus that wasn't there before. So every employee in my organization got a summer bonus as long as they were paid in USD dollars. That was the only thing that I had set up. So if I keep on scrolling down, you'll see here that some people got the summer bonus twice because they've been transferred to different departments. But here you can see the actual amount that they got paid, and I could also specify, the $2,000 that's got paid to them in June, right? So very easy for you to add any sort of new bonuses. It's a similar concept to benefits. I also have a template under HR planning, under the configuration called benefits. I just showed bonuses right now, but benefits works very similar. I can create new benefits. I can change benefits. And I could assign who gets those benefits, right? So my example here, I've got a corp benefit. and I've got a group benefit, and anybody who meets the criteria for the department salary grade and job title that I've defined here will be getting those benefits. You'll notice here that pretty much every employee got those benefits. If I want to create a new benefit that's going to get applied only to a subset of users, I can just do add row, and under here in this filter here, I can say, you know what, we're going to create a new filter, a new benefit. Let's call it webinar benefit. I'm going to specify, you know, which office or which department this benefit gets applied to. I can actually pick one, or I can choose all. I'm just going to choose all here. I'm going to choose all salary grades and all job titles, pretty much just UST employees. But here, I'm going to also specify a dollar amount, right? So maybe it's going to be a value of 200 that they're going to get, or maybe I can also specify a percentage. So let's say it's going to be 5% of their salaries, as an example. I could also specify a max amount. So if it's going to be 5%, but maybe I want to put a max amount of $10,000, I can also do that. Do OK, do save. Now behind the scenes, Clarity is recalculating everybody's bonuses, benefits, and taxes based on any changes that I've been making. So now if I just refresh my cost report by employee, you should be able to see the new benefit that I've just created for my organization. If I just do a retrieve here, you'll see right there is a webinar benefit that everybody got. And if I look at, for example, Adrian Nacoin, that's the new benefit that he's getting. And if I look at Lance Armstrong, he's also getting this benefit. But you'll notice here what's important is that he's only getting this benefit from January all the way to July, right? And he's getting it all the way up until period 12. And period 12, it's actually a different amount. This is because his total compensation, he's got a holiday bonus and he got a salary. So his bonus here is really, his benefit is really calculated on 10,500 as opposed to 10,000, right? Whereas somebody like, you know, Henry here, Henry didn't start work for budgeting purposes until period 6. So he actually didn't get any of that benefit until he actually started working for us. And in period 6 all the way to December, he got the webinar benefit that we set up. All right. So it's a great way for you to set up, you know, benefits, bonuses, and taxes, and have global rules that get applied, so that you don't actually have to create and calculate, you know, by individually, manually for each employee. You can set up these global rules and then have the calculation engine within Clarity actually calculate the bonuses, benefits, and taxes for each employee as well, you know, provided they meet the criteria that you've set up. We also have something very similar for taxes. I'm not going to go and actually create a new tax. It's a similar concept. But here you can see I've created a couple of taxes for New York State, and they're different percentages. You know, I've got 2 different New York State taxes, but Office Products or us actually has a different percentage. All other departments has a different percentage, right? So you can have any sort of combination, you know, defined as a business rule within Clarity. And, you know, you can have salary grade. In this example here, I'm doing it by department, salary grade, and currency. But you do have the ability to change these drivers, and maybe you want to do it by, let's say, pay grade as opposed to salary grade, right? So you can also set up different fields to help drive how you actually want to calculate with the system. Okay. I will want to show a little bit now on shifting away from HR. I'm going to show a little bit of the capital planning module that we have within Clarity. The capital planning module allows people or end users within Clarity to request for new assets, for capital projects that they may have, and request any new funding. And then the way it works is that once you've made a request for some new capital or on the purchase of new assets, an administrator, or, you know, if you're using workflow, somebody in the workflow chain, once they approve that request or that new purchase, the new assets that you're purchasing, only then does those numbers actually hit your GL line items that you have within Clarity, right? So you can create as many different assets that you want to purchase within Clarity. Only the approved ones actually make it into your budget, the actual dollar amount within your budget itself. Right? So I'm going to show here an example. If I go under My Templates, again, these are standard templates that exist in Clarity. These are not something I built for the demo. They would always be configured for your particular requirements, but these are standard templates that actually exist within the Clarity application. So if I go under My Templates, under Capital Planning, you'll notice this is one of the main important templates that we have within this module, the capital planning template. Now, when I select the capital planning template, I'm going to choose my page options. We can specify any capital planning that we want to do by department, by currency. I can also choose, maybe I want to just do it based on high, medium, and low priority projects that I have, or I can also specify by project. In my example here, I'm just going to choose all projects, all priority, just to show you guys some samples. Once I do an OK, you'll notice here that on the top-hand side, I've got on the top basically any sort of new assets that I've requested for my budgeting process. Some of them have been approved, as you can see here in the approval status. Some of them have not yet been reviewed, right? For each asset, I specified a description. I've specified also a justification. You can also see the timestamp of who actually made the request. I can also see here for each request that I have, what project that it's for, an in-service date, it's what the purchase date is. This is also very important because, your depreciation can be very different, obviously, if your service date and in-purchase dates are different. And we can also specify, the purchase amount, obviously, based on quantity as well as the cost per unit as well, right? So you'll notice here on the bottom, it's really a dollar summary of all of the different categories that I have for capital assets that I want to purchase. And I've got a dollar amount for all the ones that have the dollar amount for any furniture related, let's say, assets that have been approved. And I've got some machinery related assets that have not yet been removed, right? So the way we typically set up the capital planning module is, I'm just going to show a quick template here for categories, because it's really driven on how we set up our categories. If we really automate the process of how to do the capital planning within Clarity. You'll notice here I've predefined some sort of categories that I have for any sort of assets that I want to purchase. For each category, so for example, buildings, I specified a depreciation method that I want to use. I specified a useful life. I've also specified a depreciation rate, right? And with respect to that category, I've also mapped it to an asset account and a depreciation account that I have for that category. So any data that Clarity is actually calculating for that particular category of assets, Clarity is actually going to store the dollar amount into the GL accounts that I've actually identified here. So this is for assets for buildings. This is the depreciation for buildings. Similarly, for machinery, I've got an asset account for machinery type of category assets, and I've got a depreciation account for machinery as well. So this is something we normally would set up, and then let Clarity really do the heavy lifting in terms of the calculations itself. So if I go back into my capital planning template that I have, let's say I want to purchase a new asset. I just come over here on the left-hand side, hit Purchase New Asset. Sorry, wrong row. Purchase New Asset. And within this pop-up, I can specify, some more details about this asset. So I'm just going to give this an ID. I'm going to give it a project. This asset that I'm setting up is really going to be a project for 30,001. And I'm going to say here, new IT equipment and new hires, and it's going to be requested by Harjot. And approval status. So obviously it's not yet approved. Priority is high. I'm going to say, we're going to be purchasing these new IT equipment in January of 2015. It's actually going to get in service in February of the same year. And the unit price, it's laptops we're purchasing. It's $1,500 a laptop. They're really good laptops, and we're going to be purchasing 20 of them, right? So right away, my total asset amount is $30,000, and I'm also going to specify if there's any shipping costs. I can also specify here, obviously here, this is the important one, what category it belongs to. So if I select the computers category, you'll see right away that Clarity knows that we've specified as administrator that to use the straight line methodology for depreciation for this category. And we can also see the asset account, the dollar is going to hit 30,000 for this asset account in January, and this is the depreciation account for expense that this $30,000 is going to go across as well. So once I hit OK, you'll see here that we essentially have now the new row within Clarity that I just added, and this new row is really for us to see, the new hires that I put in place. And now I can go easily into another categories template that I have and actually see the depreciation that's being calculated. So under my capital planning category, I put in computers, and really computers, what I specified here is being really, that category is actually being used to drive the depreciation that's actually being calculated for that particular example. Under my reports, if I go into capital reports, I've got a report here called capital depreciation, detailed report. Let's choose a different office. Okay. You'll notice here I had a category for machinery. It was some vans that we're purchasing. I can see here pretty much, the depreciation that Clarity is actually calculating for that asset, right? So without actually approving it, it's in review status right now. It's not actually been approved. Clarity still calculates the depreciation. This is a great way for you to actually see what the potential depreciation would be, but only when that actual asset is approved by an administrator, then it goes into the actual database in your GL account, right? The way we would approve an asset, if I go into my templates, I've got a template here called Capital Planning Approval. If I click on this template, hit OK, you can see some of the categories and some of the assets that I have. And if I have, for example, this one, machinery, I have the ability to hit Approve Asset. And as soon as I hit Approve, the status goes to Approve. And you can also see now my machinery dollar amount that was $35,000 moved from not yet reviewed into the approved. So now I have a value of $35,937 that's actually going to hit my budget for asset as well as depreciation, right? So it's a great way within Clarity, for you to, as an end user, to create new assets or purchase new assets and see how the depreciation will look without actually having those numbers hit your budget until you're ready, until they're actually reviewed, right? So it's a great way, Clarity can do that, and a lot of our clients are using it for capital planning as well. If I go back into my my budget template, or if I go into my expense report that I have, let's just choose Office Products or Us. In this report, I can see all the salary data. So anything I've done in the HR template, would follow up and actually roll up into the salary accounts that I have at the top. And any of the other expense items that I have for operating expense will be hitting it, in my operating expense section that I have within my report as well. Right. So those are some of the capital expense templates that exist within Clarity that are part of the base application. I did want to focus a little bit more now on some capabilities of versioning and what-if modeling. A lot of our clients, if they're using Excel or if they're using an outdated technology, it's very difficult for them to have multiple versions of data, whether it's multiple iterations of your budget, or sometimes maybe you want to start your forecast, but you want to take your budget as a starting point. It's very difficult for you to copy that data in some older, outdated technologies as well as Excel. In Clarity, it's very simple. If I go into my versioning top at the menu, you'll notice here there's a versioning button. And this is, again, something that comes out of the box. We would have to obviously configure it based on your requirements, but it's not a lot of work for us to set this up. In the versioning screen here, I have the ability as an administrator to look at data that I have, for example, in my copy from. Maybe I want to copy my base plan data, and I want to copy it from 2015, and I want to copy it into a different version or scenario within my application, right? I've created some sample what-if, what we call scenarios. Those what-if scenarios are really for you to make any sort of data dumps from your budget or forecast into these what-if scenarios, and then apply some sort of percentage change at a high level, or maybe a dollar amount change that you want to, a dollar amount that you want to allocate or push down to that particular scenario. It's a great way for you to keep your budget intact, make a copy of it and store it into one of these what-if scenarios, make any sort of changes in the numbers, and then have variance reports to actually see how your budget compares to any sort of numbers you change in your what-if modeling or what-if scenarios. In my example here, I'm going to choose what-if 1, and I'm going to choose 2015, and you know what, I'm just going to copy the data, let's say for one of my entities. Maybe I want to do some sort of sensitivity analysis on Office Products or Us. I'm just going to choose Office Products or Us, hit Calculate. You'll notice at the bottom, Clarity is actually sending information into the database. It's copying data that I have in my base plan 2015 into my what-if 2015 year. And if I want to see the result, I think I only copied some of the expense line items, but if I come into my, I've got a report here for variance analysis. You can see, so I only did it for some of my expense accounts, but it's essentially taken my data for these accounts for base plan, copied into what-if 1, and obviously my variance right now is 0 because I haven't made any changes to my data in what-if 1. But let's say I do want to make some changes. I do have the ability to what we call what-if modeling. If I come to the top in version control, hit what-if modeling, and I'm going to say, you know what, my what-if model that I have in 2015, let's change, for example, my net income accounts, and maybe I want to take my net income accounts for Office Products or Us, And maybe I want to do a percentage change. So you know what, I've taken my budget, copied it into what if one, and maybe I want to do a top level adjustment. I want to change the percentage change, increase it by 100%. Or let's say by a certain number, let's say 10%. I can hit calculate here. Now what Clarity is doing behind the scenes is taking the data that I have in my what if one scenario and it's increasing it by 10%. The data it's only going to be in my what if one scenario. It's not going to override any data that I had in my budget. So this way I still keep my budget intact, right? The calculation completed successfully. If I just go back into my variance account here, just retract here, you'll notice here, there's some rounding issues, but you'll notice that my what if scenario for these accounts that I copied, that I've highlighted, have increased by a percentage that I've specified there as well. Right, and that's the variance. So it's a great way for an end user to be able to do any sort of what if modeling. You can apply a percentage change easily through this screen, or you may just want to do a dollar amount input, so or equal allocation. You can easily put these values into this what if model and let Clarity actually do a lot of the heavy lifting to copy the data and make any changes that you want to do for what if modeling. Right. Now we have about 5 minutes left. I don't want to, I know everybody probably has a lot of stuff to do as for today, but I'm just going to show some of the reporting capabilities within the application as well. One important way that you can do reporting within Clarity is the concept of ad hoc reporting. We do have a lot of clients who feel that Clarity has reports, but once you've built the reports, it's very difficult to do any sort of ad hoc analysis. You have to build a new report from scratch every time, or you have to modify an existing report. Clarity does have the ability to do ad hoc modeling. You have to use something called Visualizer. Most of our clients have it; they just don't know they have it. But if you go into Visualizer, we do have some reports here. There's one here called ad hoc reporting, which I'm going to show. If I select ad hoc reporting, you'll notice here that I've got all my dimensions. I've got my entities, product, scenario, year, currency, and I've got my months going across the columns, and I've got my natural accounts going across the rows. Now, if I want to do drill down, let's say I really want to look at some revenue dollars that I have, but I don't want to build a brand new report on Clarity, I can easily come into ad hoc reporting, click on revenue, double click, and now I could drill down into my sales data. Now maybe under sales I have some other data that I want to see, and I can just double click on sales, and it's going to drill down into product revenue, service revenue, technical revenue. Maybe under product revenue I want to see some data. I just double click there, and if there's any data that I have below it, it's going to drill down to there as well. In this case, product revenue is my lowest level account. But the idea here is that it's easy for you to be able to slice and dice the data within the application. Now here I have my rows account, my accounts across the rows, but maybe I want to look at this data by year, and I don't want to, I can obviously come here and change the year from 2015 to 2016 as an example, if there's any data there or not. Or maybe I want to pivot the rows. Maybe I actually want to move my year, keep it in the columns as an example, or the page option, but maybe I want to bring my entities to the actual rows. I want to nest it within the rows. I can just come over to my entities, right click, and go to pivot entities. And under pivot entities, I could go to rows. And now you'll see I've got my accounts across the left column. Then my second column on the left, now I've got my entities here. They moved from the pages to actually move into the rows. And now I can drill down into the individual rows. Now I can look at all of my accounts by individual entity that I have. Under North America, I have a lot more. I can just double click on North America, and now I can look under all my different entities by account across the rows as well. Right? Maybe now I like the way this looks. I want to move product revenue into the accounts into the columns, so page options. I can just move it there, and now I've moved my product revenue to the page, and I've got my entities across the rows as well. Right? So the great way for you to pivot, it's pretty much like a pivot table in Excel, but you can do that easily with an ad hoc report. So it's a great way for you to slice and dice to any data points that you have. Maybe you don't necessarily want to create a brand new report for. It's easy to do that within the application. So we also have some dashboard type of reports within the application as well. I'm just going to open up a couple of examples here. One that we have an executive dashboard. Now these dashboard type reports, they're built in a tool called Visualizer that comes with Clarity. It requires a little bit of training, but it's not very difficult to build as long as you know what data that you want to see. In my example here, I've got a nice dashboard. It's more visual as opposed to Excel look and feel. And across here, I've got my regional breakdown of revenue, but I can select have a drop down. Maybe I do gross margin. But this shows you how clearly you can have a drop down that really drives the type of data that you're seeing on the revenue graphs. These graphs actually get updated every time I'm changing my drop down or filters. I don't have to hit refresh; it does it automatically, right? And then you can also do drill down on any of these dashboards as well. So, for example, here I'm looking at North America, Latin America, and Europe, and each bar graph represents a quarter. But the first one is quarter one. If I want to look at quarter one by January, February, March, I just double click on quarter one. And now I'll actually drill down from quarter one into January, February, and March for each of my regions. If I want to see what the value was in January, I can just hover over the actual bar, and you'll see here that it actually tells you what the data value was for that particular month for North America, right? Furthermore, within dashboards, you also have the ability to see any sort of drill down into additional data. So as an example here, I've set up a KPI, or key performance indicator, for my gross margin. It's in red because I've specified anything less than 50% on this graph, make it red. So my gross margin is low, but maybe I want to see why it's low, right? Just looking at this dashboard doesn't tell me why. I have the ability to do a drill down. So if I click on this red button, you'll see Clarity opened up another report in a separate tab. It went from my executive dashboard, it'll open up another tab at the bottom, all analysis by region. And now I have the ability to look at all of my different regions and actually look at the numbers that's causing my gross margin to be low, right? So in my example here, I can see North America, there's a big difference between plan and actuals, right? My actuals are very low, that's why my margin is low for North America. If I double click on North America, I can go down to the individual regions, and I can see Canada is the one that's causing the issue. I can double click on Canada, and I can go down to home office decors and actually see this is my particular department that's actually causing the issue for me as a gross margin for my whole organization, right? So the key point there is that you have the ability to have these dashboards be very dynamic. They can change based on the drop-downs of page filters. You also have the ability to go from a key performance indicator to another report that actually gives you the actual numbers itself. I'm going to show another example, one other dashboard, so that you just get a flavor for how they look. We have another one here for expense. So if I go to my reports, if I go into my expense report here, it's a nice way for me to see it. The example I want to show here, you also have different type of charts as well. You also have the ability to have pie charts. You also have the ability to have line graphs at the bottom as well. Here I can see my payroll taxes, salary, and other payroll for HR. But maybe I want to drill down to payroll taxes. If I just double click there, now I've actually gone into the different payroll taxes for that I have within my organization as well. So I can hover over these individual values and actually see the dollar amount that makes up that payroll tax. Right. So again, great way for you to drill down, zoom in, zoom out. That's within the application as well for the visualizer. So one more item here, the concept of what we call audit trail and report books. Audit trail is a great way for end users to be able to manage, any changes that are happening in the application. A lot of our clients actually don't know this feature exists. So obviously, I made some changes in my templates today for budgeting that I was inputting. But under administration, you'll see there's a drop-down called audit trail, and I have the ability to do what we call audit trail by template. This is standard functionality. It just has to be enabled in the configuration files. So I click on audit trail by templates. I'm just going to choose audit only for today only and view log. In this log here, I'm basically, it's clearly showing me all the changes that I made in the application today, as part of the demo, as well as some changes I was making earlier today. But as an example, if I go to my expense template budget that we were doing as part of the webinar, 2:20 p.m. today Eastern, I can click on this button here, and it actually will show me, if I highlight the changes I actually made to this template, right? So you'll notice here that in that time when I received that template at 2:20 p.m. today, Clarity actually made it, actually stored what numbers were changed, and by hitting what I filled in the left-hand side called highlight changes, I get a nice visual representation of what numbers were actually changed. If you remember, this was a change that I made when I exported my data into Excel. I made these changes, imported back into Clarity, and hit save. These were the numbers that I actually changed. If I wanted to actually revert back to these numbers, I can copy these numbers, and I could just paste them back into my existing template. I can also look at any of the previous versions that I have as well. I think I was looking at the first one. This one, if I do the same thing, view changes, here it's highlighting the cells that I have for my cell notes. So Audit Trail is a great way for you to be able to see any changes that you've been making on the templates and actually see what numbers were actually changed itself. Right? A lot of our clients don't know that this functionality exists, but it's all pre-built. Right? And this version of the template I did a bit earlier, it's actually highlighting not only the spreading data that I changed, but it also highlighted any of the line item details that I put in as well. Right? So this example here, before I hit save, I actually made quite a bit of changes on this template. Okay. So very, very powerful feature that we have in the application for Audit Trail. A lot of our clients just don't know it exists, but it's in the application for our end users to use as well. Typically, it's more of an admin function that we have, but it's a function that's very useful for you to be able to see what the numbers were in the application before any changes were made. Right? Lastly, I'm just going to show you the concept of report books. What report books are, if you've got, let's say, a set of 10 reports, your balance sheet, income statement, cash flow, different type of reports that you've built within Clarity. Right now, the only way for you to see the data within those reports is for you to manually go into the Clarity application, navigate through the menu folders, and then open up that report manually. Right? What report books allows you to do, it allows you to create a process where you can specify a set of reports into what we call a report book, and then schedule that report book to run. So what happens when it runs is that Clarity actually opens up those reports in the application behind the scenes. It exports the data into Excel, those reports into Excel, and creates one workbook, and that workbook can actually then be emailed to your end users. So as an example, let's say I always want to look at my income statement and balance sheet every day, and I know that that's the first thing I do when I come to work. And maybe I do this as a monthly process or every week. I can set up a scheduled report book to run so that this process does it for me. I don't physically have to manually go into the application. Right? So as an example, if I go to report books, I can easily call one called Create Book, and I'm going to call this Webinar Report Book. That's the name of my report book. You can think of the name as really being the name of the workbook. And I'm going to add here a report that I want to have within this. I'm going to see, in this report book, I always want to see my expense report. I'm going to hit OK. And these are the page filters. I really care about my division, which is Office Products R Us. I really care about 2015. And I can actually choose the filters just like how you would when you open up the report. I can see here, when I run this report, what page options to use. So I'm going to use these page options, hit OK. I have the ability to add more reports to this report book, just like you would have different tabs in a workbook in Excel. I'm going to go ahead and, I'm going to put another HR report, cost report by employee, hit OK. Hit OK here, right? And I'm going to save this report book. Now, once it's saved, I have the ability to run this report book, right? So I'll show you how this works. So I do run report book. I can specify here, run this as an Excel file, and let's make a table of contents. Let's merge it. Merge means it's going to create it as separate tabs in one workbook. I can also specify email. If I want to send this as an email file, I can also specify it in an email. And obviously, if I put it in an email, I have to specify an email address. A lot of our clients will give it a group as an example. And I'm just going to go in here, and I'm going to say, let's run this report book. You'll see at the bottom, report book ran successfully. Now, how this actually looks is if I go back into my report books, and I view published report books. Let's do a search. Right. You can see all the report books that I ran on today. And our example here, we ran one right now at 307. If I actually want to see how this looks, I can open this up in Excel. I do also have the ability to have this in PDF. There's PDF and Excel are the two different options that you have for report books. I'm actually going to just choose the Excel version here to open up. Let's close Excel here. And here is my report book that it actually generated. I've got a table of contents, and I've got my expense report budget, and I've got my cost report by employee. And this is all in Excel, and Clarity put a nice table of content. It actually puts it even as a link. If I've got maybe 30 of these in a workbook, I just have to click on the link, and it actually navigates to that tab for me. Right? So this is a concept of report book. It's used a lot by our customers, and for the clients who are not using it, it's a great way for you to even get data from Clarity exported into Excel or PDFs to end users who may not have access to Clarity. Maybe it's a licensing issue, or maybe you just don't want to give them access. You can have the ability to have these report books generate and actually have it sent to email address so that they can receive it. So that's the last function that I actually wanted to show on report books. To summarize, we went through today on budgeting. I showed you the capabilities of some standard features in the application for budgeting. Showed some forecasting capabilities, also doing rolling forecast. Showed the ability to do any sort of HR planning at an employee level. And then also I showed you the ability to be able to do capital planning where you can purchase new assets and then have an approval process and set up categories and that automate the depreciation and useful life for each asset that you purchase. Only approved assets actually hit your GL account for budget purposes. I also showed you the concept of copying data through versioning, as well as doing what-if modeling on a particular scenario that you set up. Also showed you some reporting capabilities. What I did want to highlight, especially for today's webinar, was the concept of ad hoc reporting, because I think it's very powerful for you to be able to slice and dice to anywhere in your database to look at a certain number. The key point that I also wanted to make there was that you have the ability to assign security. So even through ad hoc reporting, you only see data that you have access to. The security controls are still there as well. Showed you some dashboard type of reporting that exists in Clarity where you can actually have KPIs and drill down into those KPIs to see some numbers. And then showed you audit trail where you can see any changes that Clarity is making within the application. And lastly was report books, another powerful feature that exists in the application that a lot of our clients are using. So those are some of the things that I wanted to show in today's session. My contact information is there as mentioned in the slide that you see right now. If you do have any questions, feel free to give me an email so that I can answer those questions as well. If there's any features that you saw today that maybe you want to do a deeper dive for, let me know and I can set up a follow-up webinar or a web demo where I can show it to you. Obviously, there's a lot of functionality that I showed today only in an hour. I can probably spend an hour just on each of these modules. So feel free to contact me directly through my email address here, and I'll look forward to hearing from you soon. Some of the clients that are on the call today, I did get some emails during the session. One question that I'd received from a client was if there's any, what's IBM's roadmap with Clarity? It's a great question. The roadmap is that IBM is still supporting the application. IBM is not actively selling the application. Obviously, they've got Cognos TM1, which is their strategic product long-term. But they're still supporting it. We do have customers, some of them who are moving off of Clarity this year or next year, or have plans. But we do have a lot of clients who are still going to stay on Clarity and perhaps wait for the end-of-life support if it even happens before they make any decisions. For them, it's still working and they're happy using it. And Obero is happy to support our clients regardless if they want to stay with Clarity or move to another application. We can help our clients, support them on existing Clarity work or new development they want to do on Clarity. We can also, for the ones who want to move off, we can work with you to identify the solutions in the market and help you find the right fit for your requirements. So I want to thank everyone for joining the webinar today. And if there's any follow-ups, feel free to give me an email, and I look forward to hearing from you soon. Thank you, everyone.